It was the rain that gave it away. Not because it was unusual. In Seattle, the rain was as common as coffee and traffic, but because of how it changed her. For the past few months, Emily had stopped complaining about it. No sighing when it smudged her makeup, no muttered curses when she tracked mud through the house. She just smiled. Quietly. As if the drizzle outside meant something only she could understand. Michael noticed the change one Wednesday morning, standing by the kitchen window as he poured his coffee. The rain streaked the glass, gray light pooling across the countertops. She was at the sink, humming softly, a tune he didn't recognize. It was the way she smiled at her phone that froze him. A subtle, tender smile, small but real. He'd seen her smile like that before. Years ago. But never like that for him. Michael and Emily Turner had been married 12 years. He was a systems analyst for a software firm downtown. She was a real estate agent who worked mostly from home or in her car, always on the move, always one client call away from closing a deal. They lived in a craftsman-style house on the north side of the city, a place they'd bought when things were good, back when promotions came often, when vacations happened twice a year, and when Emily would still leave him little notes tucked into his lunch bag. But lately, something had changed. It wasn't big at first. It was the silences, long, soft silences between dinner and bedtime. Or how she started locking her phone, leaving it face down on the table. She laughed less. She touched him less. The bed felt colder, the air between them heavier. Michael told himself it was stress. Work. Maybe she was just tired of the same routine. God knows he was. But then she started dressing differently. New blouses. Subtle perfume. A new shade of lipstick, darker, bolder than anything she'd worn before. He wanted to believe it was for her job. She often met clients, after all. Appearance mattered. But deep down, he knew it was for someone else. He didn't confront her. Not yet. He just watched. Waited. Listened. And that's when the first lie appeared, small, almost invisible, but sharp enough to cut. She said she had a showing in Bellevue. He drove by later, on his way home from work, a knot in his stomach. There was no showing there. No cars. No house lights. Just an empty lot. He told himself he was being paranoid. Until the next week, when her evening client dinner ended at 11:47 p.m. The distance between them grew like ivy, quietly, invisibly, but impossible to stop once it took root. Michael began to notice patterns. Her phone would light up after midnight. She'd leave the room to answer calls, claiming they were urgent listings. Sometimes, she came home smelling faintly of someone else's cologne. He told his best friend, Dan, over beers one Friday night. Dan listened, frowning. "You sure you're not just imagining things, man? You've been under a lot of stress lately." "Yeah," Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe." But the next morning, Emily left early again, said she was heading to Tacoma for a client tour. Michael waited an hour, then checked her location on the shared Find My app they'd set up years ago. Tacoma wasn't where the dot was blinking. It was a small boutique hotel near Lake Union, the kind couples booked for weekend getaways. Something inside him cracked. He didn't confront her that night. He couldn't. He just lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, her soft breathing steady and calm. He wanted to hate her. But mostly, he hated himself, for not seeing it sooner, for pretending it wasn't real. Her lover's name, he learned later, was Ryan Hale, a client, 37, divorced, some kind of tech consultant. He found out by accident, scrolling through her open laptop one afternoon while she was in the shower. There it was, an email thread, half deleted but not gone. Her words were cautious, professional at first. Then intimate. Then unmistakably personal. Last night felt unreal. I still can't believe I did this. You make me feel alive again, Ryan. Michael stared at the screen, his hands trembling. The shower stopped. He closed the laptop and stepped away, heart pounding so hard he thought it might give him away. When she came out wrapped in a towel, her skin still damp, she smiled, that same quiet smile he'd seen at the sink weeks ago. He forced himself to smile back. Hey, she said softly. You okay? Yeah, he said. Just tired. The weeks that followed were torture. Michael played his part, the patient husband, the calm observer. He made her coffee in the mornings, kissed her cheek before she left. He even laughed at her jokes. But inside, he was unraveling. Every text alert, every late night, every sudden change of plan chipped away at him. He imagined them together, the laughter, the touch, the whispered promises. He stopped eating much. Started drinking more. Stayed late at work just to avoid being home. And still, he couldn't confront her. Because confrontation meant finality. It meant admitting that their life, the years, the memories, the house, was built on something that had quietly rotted underneath. But secrets have gravity. And sooner or later, they pull everything down. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Emily said she was showing a lake house to a potential buyer. She left in a hurry, barely touching her coffee. Michael waited an hour, then two, then grabbed his keys and followed. He didn't know what he planned to do, maybe just confirm what he already knew. But as he pulled up near the hotel again, his stomach twisted. Her car was there. Parked outside room 214. He waited. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy. It streaked down the windshield, blurring the edges of everything. An hour later, she came out. Her hair was tousled, her clothes different than when she'd gone in. Ryan followed a few steps behind her, smiling as he touched her arm. Michael's breath hitched. They kissed, slow, deliberate, careless. And just like that, 12 years collapsed into nothing. He drove home in silence, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. When she came in later, dripping wet, she smiled faintly. Hey. You're home early. Yeah, he said. I am. She froze. Just for a second. A flicker of something, guilt, maybe fear, passed through her eyes. But he didn't say anything else. He just walked upstairs. It took him 3 days. 3 days to decide what to do. He printed the emails. Saved the photos from her laptop. Even recorded one of her phone calls when she slipped up and answered in the living room. When he finally confronted her, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Measured. Almost surgical. Who is Ryan Hale? He asked one night, setting the printouts on the table. Her face drained of color. What? Don't, he said sharply. Don't lie to me. Not now. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain tapping the windows. Then she whispered, I'm sorry. Those words, small, fragile, useless, shattered him more than the affair itself. He didn't yell. Didn't throw things. He just stood there, tears burning in his eyes. How long? 6 months, she said. It wasn't supposed to happen. He laughed, hollow, bitter. You said you loved me last week. I did, she said. I still do. No, he said quietly. You love who I used to be. And I loved who you were before you became someone I can't recognize. She moved out 2 weeks later. No big scene, no shouting. Just quiet boxes and hollow rooms. The house felt like a museum of their old life, photos on the mantel, the imprint of her head on the pillow. She texted once, a month later. I hope you're okay. He never replied. He sold the house that fall. moved to a small apartment near the waterfront. Some nights he still dreamed of her, the way she looked the day they met, on that rainy campus afternoon in 2009, when everything still felt possible. But dreams, like love, fade. And as the Seattle rain fell outside his window, he realized something he hadn't before. That sometimes, love doesn't end with anger or betrayal. Sometimes, it just ends with silence. Michael never sought revenge. He didn't need to. Because the life they'd built, the laughter, the trust, the memories, had already done it for him. The ghosts of what they were would haunt her longer than any punishment could. And as he finally deleted her contact one gray December morning, he whispered the only goodbye that mattered. What we leave behind says more than what we keep.